Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you this hour by Prop Swap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets. Take your profit. Find out how. PropSwap.com. Download the Prop Swap app today. Andrew DiCecco from InsideTheBirds.com is here at a DiCecco NFL. Some of the prospects that he is watching. Senior Bowl is here. I know we're all excited to start to dive into the draft. I know I certainly am. And so is this man, Andrew DiCecco from InsideTheBirds.com, as he joins me right now for another edition of Football at 4. Andrew, what's up, man?
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
All is well. And, all right, Senior Bowl is here. This is kind of the kickoff of the draft season, so it'll be a good opportunity to kind of pick your brain on what's been happening down there. Let's start with how important the Senior Bowl is and how this really kicks off the draft season and the players that are down there. Really, this week of practice, this is really the first opportunity for them to kind of move their way up and down draft boards.
Yeah, all these games are so important. The whole weeks of practice. I mean, you talk about the Shrine Bowl, the NFLPA Bowl, the Dream Bowl, obviously the Senior Bowl being, the cream of the crop here. But it's very integral to the whole draft process in that you're going against the nation's top competition, essentially. And there's all these different GMs and coaches, and it just everybody swarms to Mobile, Alabama for this. And you want to see how these different prospects, how do they tick? How do they respond to the increased scrutiny and just under the pressure of knowing that, step one of a long audition process. And I think when you have a lot of the GMs and coaches there, you want to see how some guys, how does a Jahan Dotson, who's 5'11", 184 pounds, how does he fare going against a Roger McCreary or the players of that mold and see how they're able to compete? And that's why this week is so paramount. But I will also say as a disclaimer, it's not the be-all, end-all, but you will see stocks soar and drop, and you'll see some names emerge that maybe you didn't hear as much over the past couple of months. But, yeah, it's the start of a very long process, and I can't stress that enough to folks, that this is always step one of a very arduous process. We still have to get to the end of April, and a lot of things happen. You'll see a lot of different mock drafts. You'll see players mock in the first round that'll probably end up going late round 2 right now. It's just there's a lot of shuffling that goes on throughout this whole process, as you know.
Yes, and one of the guys I know over at InsideTheBirds.com, Andrew, that you will have your eyes on this week is Kenny Pickett, and he is the Pitt quarterback, and everybody seems to have a different opinion on who's the best quarterback in this class. I think the one opinion that most of us have, though, is there is not that franchise standout level quarterback. But if there was one, is Pickett the one that you think might be that guy?
Yeah, everything that I've sort of gathered for this week is that a lot of these quarterbacks have had their moments, but you haven't had one that's been overly overwhelming. And as far as just consistency and showcasing, bona fide franchise quarterback traits throughout the week. And when I look at it and I assess it, I think Malik Willis from Liberty offers the highest upside. However, I think Kenny Pickett will probably be the most consistent and the most competent starter long-term and the safest floor, I would say. He's 6'3", 221 pounds, athletic, smart, and just has a 42 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 67.2, I believe, for completion percentage. So there's a lot to like with him. He would be a safe selection there for a team looking at a quarterback. And I think that he's one of the players that has the most to gain this week and really cement his stock as a blue-chip prospect. And from what I've gathered, he has had a good week, but not a week that's blown anybody away by any stretch. So he'll have a lot of ground. He'll have a lot of opportunity to make up some ground throughout the next couple of months. But yes, I think Kenny Pickett would be my top option. Carson Strong from Nevada is another interesting player that I wanted to mention. Very big arm, doesn't have the athleticism or the mobility of a Kenny Pickett, but very accurate. great pocket presence, and when you talk about a guy who can make all the throws and has that velocity, he's that guy. He's more of a prototypical pocket passer, I would say, and he's certainly not going to flee the pocket or threaten any teams with his legs. But he's an interesting player that I think we'll see his stock sort of soar to varying degrees throughout this process.
All right, we just talked about Pickett. Malik Willis, he's obviously over the last 2 days, if listeners have never seen him play, don't know anything about him, but are starting to hear some Senior Bowl buzz, he seemingly is the standout of the quarterbacks. What can you tell us about Willis? What's your thoughts on him for the draft?
Yeah, athletic quarterback, not the most his accuracy is inconsistent, but I think that he has a big arm enough to make all the different throws, processes things pretty quickly. But again, when it comes to him, I kind of equate it to how I felt about Jordan Love, in that you see a lot of good, but there's also those performances where it makes you scratch your head and say, is this the same guy that I just saw? So I think that he has a lot to prove throughout this process. He was my favorite quarterback going into this season because I really like what he brings from just an athletic standpoint and the ability to really elevate an offense. And but we'll see what happens here. He's a smart quarterback, and he's made some big plays for Liberty, made them relevant again. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, he's been the guy that's really produced the most breathtaking type of plays to come out of Mobile throughout the week.
Okay, I want to pick your brain on two more at the Senior Bowl. If we were having this conversation last year about the draft and talk about the prospects for this year's draft, we would be talking about Sam Howell as the number one quarterback. What happened to him, and where do you now kind of re-slot him if you've changed your thoughts on him?
Yeah, well, he regressed from an accuracy standpoint. I thought he was slow to process. I didn't think he saw the field overly well. These are certain instances where you start to wonder, is this player, is he pressing? Is this particular prospect pressing because there's an immense amount of pressure on him? He knows that he was at one point the top quarterback. And when you sort of face that pressure, not everybody's built for that, Mike. And sometimes some of their deficiencies start to surface. And you saw a big regression in Sam Howell this season. And just from a mechanical standpoint, I would say, and now I would probably say he went from being, the top quarterback, clear and above, his peers, to now, I don't know, maybe a second round prospect right now with room to improve, because like I said, it's only February right now, so there's a lot of room to move up and down the draft board. Yeah,
as you said, like, he was probably the number one quarterback, maybe the number one selection in the early stages of this. You wonder if he's the kind of guy that gets picked, in the late second or early third and, shows his true potential. I mean, is he one of those guys that, hey, if he's on the board in round 2 or 3, I got to take him?
Yeah, obviously the talent level is there, and you have to wonder. And he's going to get drilled with a lot of these questions and in these interviews, and poked and prodded throughout the combine and everything. The combine is going to be another telltale. How does he fare on the throwing, the on-field portion of those drills? And he's gonna get asked about what factored into the inconsistencies, where what was the driving force behind that, and right. He's gonna have to answer to it, and teams are not going to shy away from that. But I do think that the talent level is there. So I think if you get him into the right system, in the right coaching staff, and you surround him with the proper talent, he will be one of those quarterbacks that really acclimates quite well to the pro level in time. He does have the ability.
Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4, quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl. Two other interesting guys that if you were a college football fan, you've probably seen or have at least heard of. Desmond Ritter, Cincinnati, played in the national Final Four there, was the Cincinnati quarterback the last couple of years. And Bailey Zappe, who was at Houston Baptist and then transferred to Western Kentucky, and all he did everywhere was put up massive, massive numbers. Two very interesting names this week.
Yeah, those are two guys as well. And when you look at the quarterback class as a whole, you wonder where do these guys really fit in, because they have their guys that are really high on them, and you're betting on upside in regards, and then you're also you also have a lot of questions as far as whether they can be a viable starting option, or are they just going to be a high-end backup. And I think those two guys in particular, have perhaps you can argue that they have some of the most to gain out of this week. And if I'm looking at it right now, I hate to slot guys into draft positioning right now. It's February 3rd, but I like what they bring from a skill set standpoint and athletic. They both have individual traits that I really like. However, they're further down the list as far as, compared to the other guys that we mentioned, and Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett and Sam Howell.
One other, we all know that Howie likes to draft interior line, and a guy that I know that you're watching this week is Perrion Winfrey, and it seems that he's the kind of guy that this week will do wonders for.
Yeah, and it already is. I mean, he's really stood out from everything that I've read and the information that I've gathered. Just very quick twitch interior guy. He's sub 300 pounds, strong guy, good pass rusher, great, explosive burst off the ball. And when you look at what the Eagles have right now, they only have, as far as a young piece that they're going to move forward with as far as interior line goes, Milton Williams. So find him a compliment. And I think a guy like Perrion Winfrey is going to be a viable option to do so. And I think they would complement each other quite well. You also might see Milton Williams play some defensive end this season. So either way, when you look at Javon Hargrave as an unrestricted free agent, the high price tag allocated to Fletcher Cox, they need to get younger in that area. And Winfrey's a player that's really helped himself this week and made some money. So he's opened some eyes, and I really like what he brings from a pass rush standpoint. He had 5.5 sacks last season, by the way. So that has to be enticing if you're looking at it from a pass rush standpoint, from interior linemen. That's really makes a lot of difference when you're going against some of these upper echelon quarterbacks.
Edge rushers, I think if you look at the best position in this draft, would you say is edge rusher? Is this the deepest spot in the draft?
Yeah, and by my estimation, I would say so. I mean, I like George Karlaftis quite a bit from Purdue. I don't believe that he'll be there. You hate making these declarations right now, but I have a hard time envisioning him being there when the Eagles are on the clock with their first round selection. But if he is, I mean, if I'm the Eagles, I'm running to the podium to get him. He's a strong guy, has inside-outside versatility. A guy who I really like and I think could be a feasible option for the Eagles is Jermaine Johnson from FSU, a player who spent his first couple seasons in JUCO at Independence Community College in Kansas. He was also featured on the Netflix special Last Chance U. 6'5", 262 pounds, strong, powerful, explosive off the edge, violent hands, good against the run. He can anchor pretty well, and he's been one of the standout performers in the entire week in Mobile. So I think that he's sort of ascended from a bottom of the first round type of guy to right around that 20 range, maybe 19, right in that area. I think that's going to be his sweet spot ultimately when the dust settles.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on Jermaine Johnson, just a freak kind of athlete, similar to like Josh Sweat, another guy who was just a freak athlete. Josh, of course, had a lot of injury issues when he was there. Johnson might even be more athletic than what Sweat was. Both those guys, freak edge rushers from the same school, by the way, right? Sweat went to Florida State, didn't he?
Yeah, Florida State, yeah.
All right, I want to get your thoughts on the corner class. I know you like McCreary and guys that you're watching down there this weekend, because obviously I think that's a spot that you're going to need to keep an eye on around 15, 16, 19.
Yeah, McCreary is the guy that I'm looking at from Auburn. He's a very athletic, long, very fluid change of direction. I think he can match up with any receivers of any body type. Isn't afraid to get physical in the run and utilize his size to his advantage. I think he challenges the catch point quite well, uses his hands well. He's a smart player. And having him complement Darius Slay, I think, would be the most ideal fit, particularly when you're looking at pick number 19. I think if that's right, he's going to be a top 20 player. Trent McDuffie's another player that I like. Andrew Booth might be my favorite corner in this entire class. Just a very smooth, fluid, in transition defender. I think he's got good ball production. I think he's a very astute, football-minded player and has an immensely high upside. Obviously, Stingley's another one. There's just that first round is going to be rich with cornerback production. But I think for where the Eagles are picking, I have Roger McCreary. Obviously, if you saw my mock draft, I had him being their third of the first round picks, going to sort of fortifying that cornerback position instead of having to rely on Steven Nelson or just a free agent. A guy who's sort of bounced around a little bit. I think they need to really add a building block there, and they're going to have an excellent opportunity to do so in the first round.
All right, Andrew DiCecco, Football 4. He's got a list of players over at InsideTheBirds.com that he is kind of keeping his eye on at the Senior Bowl this weekend. We've talked about the quarterbacks and mostly defense. If there was one wide receiver in that 15, 16, 19 range, because I think it's evident they do still need a wideout. Now, I don't know that they would take a third first-round wideout, but if they did and had interest in one, is there one that you like in that range?
I don't know that I would even take a wide receiver there.
Right. Well, I don't think they should. I think they should do wide receiver in free agency. All right, they need to get.
There's receivers I like Traylon Burks. I like Drake London a little bit from USC. Olave is a fantastic route runner, who might be my favorite in this class right now. But I mean, it's kind of hard to justify taking a receiver and swinging the bat again while you let other areas of your team sort of waste away.
I want to be clear. I agree with you, Andrew. I just keep seeing a lot of these mock drafts, and again, they're not the gospel, but I keep thinking to myself, man, like, you just said Olave. I've seen him going in that to Philadelphia. Drake London, I've seen him go to. I'm thinking, would they really take another wideout for the third year in a row in the draft in the first round?
I wouldn't, read too much into mock drafts. I mean, it's right. They're not GMs or anything like that. I think that they're just. It's almost like fantasy football. They're just sort of saying, what if they put this guy on the offense and pair him with Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders? No, realistically, when you look at the Eagles' history, they place a strong emphasis on strengthening both lines. So I think that when you look at the offensive line, they're going to have an opportunity for there. And I also think that Jermaine Johnson, to me, would be an ideal option. And corner, I mean, that's been a perpetually putrid, sort of a conundrum for the Eagles for so long. Now you're going to have a chance to add, a 10-year starter with one of those picks. So I think that would be the best, best way to utilize your resources.
All right, Football 4, Senior Bowl this weekend. Check it out. There's a couple local guys in there as well. Bo Melton, Rutgers. Watch him. He's been opening some eyes at the Senior Bowl. He's a Cedar Creek kid, so you got some local flavor. And all the quarterbacks, a bunch of them. There's a lot of senior quarterbacks this year that you can watch this weekend in the Senior Bowl. Andrew DiCecco, he'll be back on Tuesday. Follow him for all the draft stuff at DiCecco NFL. Check out his work over at InsideTheBirds.com. All right, excellent conversation, Andrew. Appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Talk to you next week.
Yeah, man. We will do some more draft conversation, free agency conversation. Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4.